Yeah, I could see this. I'll give this back to you.
Bill? We need Bill.
How are you? Nice to see you. Oh my God. How are you? So glad you're here. I'm so glad to be successful. How are you? Congratulations. No problem. Thank you. Most distinguished guests, welcome to Yale University. Welcome to Yale School of Management. Thank you for being part of our conference that marks the opening of our new home, Edward P. Evans Hall. It's terrific to be joined by so many members of the Yale community, our alumni, our faculty, our friends, here in Zhang Auditorium. We're also joined throughout the Global Network for Advanced Management by those who are joining online and also in satellite classrooms throughout Evans Hall. We celebrate the opening of Evans Hall thanks to, among others, Edward P. Evans, the Beinecke family, Wilbur and Hillary Ross, Josh and Anita Bekenstein, Charlie Ellis and Linda Lorimer, Lei Zhang and Zili Jenny Zhao. Of note, these important gifts to Evans Hall came well before I arrived at Yale. The planning efforts also began well before I arrived at Yale. And not surprisingly, the planning and support continued all the way through yesterday, last night, and this morning. As of now, 1,400 individuals, 1,300 of whom are Yale School of Management alumni, have contributed to Evans Hall. The construction teams, the IT teams, logistics, planning teams were working yesterday. As Dean of Yale School of Management, I offer sincere thank you to all of you. And I look forward to more complete and detailed thank yous during my closing remarks on Saturday morning. Looking at the schedule, business and society, leadership in an increasingly complex world, one could correctly say that the next 2 days and this evening represent high point events for the school. I'm delighted that we have convened such an array of leaders across sectors. We're pleased that Mayor Tony Harp has joined us, that Governor Dan Malloy, Senator Blumenthal, and other elected officials are joining us throughout the conference. I'm especially honored to introduce two founding visionaries of Yale School of Management at this time, Bill Beinecke and Bill Donaldson, each of whom will now offer remarks. Bill Beinecke is a philanthropist and business leader who helped shape many parts of Yale. He was a member of the Yale Corporation from 1971 to 1982 when he advocated the establishment of a management school at Yale. And he's been a critical supporter of the school throughout its entire history. In many ways, Bill Beinecke is the school's founder. Bill Donaldson spent more than 40 years at the highest level of government, business, and academia. Bill was the founding dean of Yale School of Management, leaving an indelible mark on the school, which continues to grow with his ongoing active and generous involvement. First, let's hear from Bill Beinecke.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, friends of SOM all. When I was invited to speak here, I questioned the wisdom of the organizers of this event. I'm 4 months away from turning 100. As a general rule, when someone who's 90 is asked to speak, he doesn't know what to say. When someone who's 99 is asked to speak, he doesn't know when to stop. I'll let you be the judge of that. SOM holds a special place in my heart. My connection with the school goes a long way back to before we had any school at all. In the mid-1950s, I was one of a large number of Yale alumni who felt that the university should establish what we would have called a business school. It was a conviction that grew out of our personal experiences. We had seen the swift evolution of U.S. business and industry following World War II. We knew that business and the capitalistic system were significant forces in American life. We believed that it was important for Yale to have a school of management, not just to compete with its rivals, but to fulfill the university's responsibilities as a national institution. At the same time, we were confident that Yale, being Yale, could make a uniquely valuable contribution to the education of managers, just as the Yale schools of medicine, law, and divinity had done for many generations of doctors, lawyers, and ministers. The school's creation was the work of many hands over many years. One of the prime movers was Yale's president, Kingman Brewster, whose interest in SOM grew out of his interests in government, economics, and the development of public policy. SOM was part of his vision of a greater role for Yale in helping make our system work better. The late 1960s and early 70s was not an easy time to set up a new school of management. Many critics saw the proposal as proof that Yale had become the lackey of corporate America. The temper of the times meant that when SOM was created by a vote of the Yale Corporation in the spring of 1973, it was known as the School of Organization and Management rather than as a business school. And the degree it first offered was the Master of Public and Private Management, or MPPM. Nothing so common as an MBA. Kingman reached inside the Yale Corporation itself for the school's first dean, Bill Donaldson. We're fortunate that Bill is with us here today. Bill used to sit next to me at corporation meetings, and we became good friends. Bill was a Wall Street financier rather than an academic, and there were some who questioned his appointment as the school's first dean. Not me. Like Kingman, I recognized that Bill was a man of extraordinary entrepreneurial skills. Starting from zero made the school a reality. He worked out the school's role in the university, assembled the first faculty and administration, and most importantly, recruited the first students. I remember calling on him as his first office on Hill House Avenue when SOM was processing its first student applications. He showed me a number of student folders and told me how thrilled he was by the quality of the applicants for the first class. I had a personal connection to two other people who were important in the creation of SOM. My uncle, Edwin J. Beinecke, died a few years before the school came into existence, but he knew of my interest in it. He left Yale a substantial sum to create the Edwin J. Beinecke Professorship of Finance and Management Studies, which is now held by SOM's Professor William Gutzman. My father, Frederick W. Beinecke, had graduated from Yale in 1909 from the undergraduate division that was then known as the Sheffield Scientific School. When he died in 1971, he too left money for SOM in his will. Part of his bequest created the Frederick W. Beinecke Fund, which has often helped to balance the school's budget over the last several decades. And my father also established the Frederick W. Beinecke Chair in Economics, which since 1992 has been held by Rick Levin, Yale's previous president. SOM was officially launched in 1976 and graduated its first class in 1978. The generations of students, faculty, and administrators since then have propelled the Yale School of Management into becoming one of the leading schools of its kind in this country. And the deans who succeeded Bill Donaldson have played a leading role in SOM's success. I have greatly admired the work of Jeffrey Hazard, Burton Malkiel, Martin Peck, Michael Levine, Paul McAvoy, Stanley Garska, Jeffrey Garton, Joel Polodny, Sharon Oster, and our current leader, Ted Snyder. On a personal note, I should tell you that it was during Sharon Oster's deanship that my grandson, Ben Beinecke, attended SOM and proudly left with his MBA in hand in 2010. Now we turn to the future, and we ready ourselves for it in this magnificent new campus, Edward P. Evans Hall. Today is not only a day of dedication, but a day of celebration. SOM has arrived. It has arrived at the threshold of the journey that lies ahead. That journey under the leadership of President Peter Salovey and Dean Snyder will take this school on its splendid new campus to even greater heights. The name of SOM and the reputation of its faculty and graduates will resound not only in this country, but in the great world beyond. I will be watching that glorious development from wherever I happen to be.
That's so fantastic. Thank you.
On behalf of everyone here, thank you, Mr. Beinecke. Dean Donaldson.
Well, when SOM was conceived over 40 years ago, who back then could have forecast what has now been achieved? The concept was unique, a graduate school of management dedicated to educating the leaders of tomorrow to apply entrepreneurial effort to their work in any of three sectors, corporate, nonprofit, or government, while understanding the similarities, differences, and interconnections among these sectors. No one but SOM was thinking this way in 1975. The contributions to date from some 6,000 SOM grads has exceeded the hopes and aspirations of those who believed in this mission early on. The skeptics have been discredited. Many have been won over along the way to what SOM was seeing back then as a vision of the future. Today, we celebrate not only the architectural inspiration of Lord Norman Foster in creating this new home for the school, but also the unfailing support of so many who have made it possible. We salute President Kingman Brewster and the then Yale Corporation, who took a calculated risk to bring forth a new professional school at Yale amidst great controversy, and more recently, the steadfast support of President Rick Levin through certainly some uncertain times. We appreciate the generosity of the financial supporters throughout the years, many of whom are here with us today. Most particularly that of Ned Evans recently, and over 40 years ago, that of his father, Thomas Mellon Evans, who responded to the pleas for help by the then newly installed founding dean. We admire the many dedicated deans along the way. You mentioned a few. Jeff Hazard, who succeeded me, Bert Malkiel, Mike Levine, Stan Gartzka, Jeff Garton, Joel Podolny, Sharon Oster, Joe Peck, who died last year, his daughters Kathy and Sarah, and his son Richard, and his grandson Richard Jr. are here with us today. We salute the founding faculty who came with enthusiasm and dedication from here at Yale and from afar. Clay Alderfer, Vic Vroom, David Berg, Larry Isaacson, Ron Whippern, Paul McElvoy, John Steinbrunner, Paul Burney, Martin Shubik, Art Swersey, and Eric DiNardo. We admire the devoted administrative leaders who brought with them the excitement and commitment to the new school and its mission. Doug Yates, Don Ogilvie, Jane Morrison, Irene Lukitas, and equally importantly, the hardy band of master's degree students led by the charter class, lured by the promise and proposed content of the new degree, the MPPM, who took the risk along with everybody else who helped build the school in those early days. So here we are today in a new era of national and global challenges, where strong leadership of the complex business, government, and nonprofit enterprises throughout the world has never been more needed and important. And this Yale School of Management continues to be out front, true to its original mission, while adapting to the ever-changing needs of our times. Yale University and SOM are fortunate to have new leaders in President Salovey and Dean Snyder, both of whom bring vision and creativity in a world desperately in need of new direction and leadership. As I said at the beginning, 40 years ago, I couldn't have imagined this, hoped for it, but not imagined it. I'm so happy and proud to be here today. And I have to say that not to acknowledge an end in any way, but to salute SOM's new campus and home as a spectacular launching pad for what the next 40 years and beyond will bring. Thanks very much.
Thank you. It's my pleasure now to introduce Professor Sharon Oster, my predecessor as dean. Sharon, as was noted, deserves much of the credit for getting us here. She engaged in a lot of fundraising efforts and oversaw the planning and development of Evans Hall. Sharon.
Thank you, Ted. Ted asked me to talk a little bit about the SOM faculty's perspective on the new building and our new digs. Faculty at SOM have, from the beginning, been very fortunate in its facilities and buildings. Our first home, more than 30 years ago, was in the beautiful mansions on Hillhouse Avenue, a street that some have described as one of the most beautiful streets in all of America. In those first two mansions, we were very well integrated with the rest of Yale, both in proximity to various departments and also in the style of the mansions. It was the right place for us at the time. But of course, we grew. We grew in faculty, we grew in students. We began expanding, first across the street to 55 Hillhouse, then down the street to the Trowbridge Mansion. And something in that expansion, while wonderful, was lost. The sense of us as a tight-knit community of scholars, all of whom hung together in the same small space, began to dissipate, and we began to become more compartmentalized, departmentalized, separated one from another as scholars. Perhaps more importantly, as the students grew and as our appetite for a different kind of teaching, a more modern teaching, a more interactive teaching grew, we found the facilities were no longer good enough to help us do the kind of teaching we knew the students deserved and that we wanted to provide. It was time to move. But of course, with the background of those mansions, it was not going to be easy to satisfy a persnickety faculty. But I must say, Lord Foster has done it. The faculty who have experimented with the classrooms have come away amazed at the way that the space enables the kind of teaching that they want to do, excited about the way in which these new facilities can help us deliver what we know to be our capacity for extraordinary classroom teaching. The common spaces, the Ross Library, the McNay Media Center, the Bekenstein Atrium, the Ellis and Lorimer Cafe, all of those spaces offer us the kind of opportunities we've lacked to interact both with each other and with our students in a more informal way. We are very, very excited about those possibilities. New patterns of faculty interaction are already beginning to emerge as we bump into each other up and down the stairs, across the corridors, one from another. But those things are pragmatics. The teaching in the classrooms and the interaction across the faculty, important as they are pragmatics. Harder to describe is the feeling of pride that we faculty have in being part of a beautiful space, in being part of a signature building on a wonderful campus at Yale, one of the, I think, most beautiful of the modern buildings, the other one of which is the Beinecke Library, here at Yale. pride that we feel in what that space means to all of us, the Yale faculty, about Yale's commitment, a commitment they had from the beginning under Bill Beinecke and Bill Donaldson, a commitment to be a world-class management school, the best that we can be. Thank you, Bill, for those visions early on. Thank you, Rick Levin, for maintaining that vision in hard times and enabling us to have this building. And thank you to all of you generous donors who have given us this beautiful space for us to work and play in.
Thank you. I now have the honor of introducing the president of Yale University, Peter Salovey. He's been a great supporter of Yale School of Management as provost, and we claim him as a faculty colleague, and also claim him as an ongoing contributor to our initiative on leadership and organizations. President Salovey.
Great. Thank you, Dean Snyder. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon on what really is a fabulous moment in Yale University history. I should start really on a personal note. You know, the Beinecke family and my family share common roots in Summit, New Jersey. And when Bill and I were children, we couldn't imagine this day ever coming. Let me start by also adding my thanks to everyone here who has made this day arrive. I really do also have to start with Bill Beinecke and Bill Donaldson, the founding fathers of SOM, to Sharon Oster and to Rick Levin for really their leadership in shepherding this project through, a challenging project during challenging times. To Dean Snyder and his vision for the school, who's going to take these facilities and create the new SOM in them. And of course, the generosity of everyone who contributed financially to this project. Let me mention as well my particular thanks to the transformative donors, the Evans family. Shell Evans is here, Bill, and the Beinecke family, Josh Bekenstein and his family, the Ross family, the Zhang family. We are so thankful. But you know, and I say this in part because these proceedings are being simulcast to alumni all over the world, I really want to make a special thank you to the many, many Yale alumni who stepped up and contributed along with these leaders. 1,400 people gave to this project, 1,300 of them with connections to SOM. It's really hard to imagine a more loyal group than the alumni of the School of Management. I've been asked many times over the last, really over the last year, about the vision for the future of Yale. When I was first asked this question, I tried to articulate an answer that I could give in 2 or 3 minutes. And 4 words occurred to me. And they were a more unified Yale, a more innovative Yale, so innovation, more accessible Yale, accessibility, and an even more excellent Yale. What is lovely about SOM is it is one part of this larger campus community, of this university, that embodies all of those themes. SOM has always aspired to be more than a confederation of great programs or underlying departments, but really to have a particular mission that unified the entire school. It's a school whose dean now describes how it wants to be more connected to the university on which it resides, on whose campus it resides, more connected than any other business school in the world today. And of course, it connects the idea of business and management to ideas of culture, legal systems, political environments, and of course, many, many other concepts and fields of study. SOM as an innovator, I don't have to really describe that to all of you. You all know that story. It's been a pioneer in curricular innovation. Its cross-cutting, integrated curriculum is a model for other business schools. And it has approached leadership, the issue of leadership, by challenging conventional wisdom and asking what really creates leaders in a larger context rather than leaders in isolation. Accessibility, SOM is especially accessible to deserving students now from all over the world. I point out only the new global network for advanced management, within which SOM has played a leading role in bringing together and making more accessible the resources of Yale to deserving students and scholars from all over the world today. And excellence almost goes without saying. No matter how good we are, there's always room to be better. Dean Snyder, in particular, has not been afraid to articulate vision for SOM that propels it into the ranks of the most excellent schools of business and management. But I also need to conclude, I think, on one other aspect of excellence, and we're all experiencing it today. For many of you, probably for the first time when you walked through those doors on Whitney Avenue, and that is the excellence of this magnificent building. Marta, my wife, and I snuck in during the break. Yale was closed. Amazingly, my key card opened the door. I was astonished. It actually doesn't seem to work reliably at Woodbridge Hall, but it did open. And we snuck around, looking around at this building. Weren't many other people, few other people were here. In fact, I think some cabin-fevered parents on our faculty were bringing their children here that day, letting them kind of run around the space and enjoy themselves. We were blown away, walking the corridors, peeking in the classrooms, walking upstairs, looking out at the back, imagining the landscaping, sticking our head in this auditorium. It was breathtaking. I began my career as a social psychologist who studied emotions, and the emotions that I first focused on were jealousy and envy. And I realized that I was going to have a management problem facing me having to do with envy when school reopened, university reopened on January 2nd. But it's a good kind of problem to have. This facility will further unite the SOM community, broadly speaking, and create a great and inspiring place for further excellence in the Yale School of Management. Delighted to be here celebrating with all of you today.
Thank you, President Salovey. I'd like to now offer some closing remarks on this first part of our opening conference. The fundamental complement to the facilities is, of course, our people. Our broad-minded and distinguished faculty, our curious and rigorous students, our dedicated staff, they've all prepared for this facility. And I think about our faculty. In just one of our senior faculty members, we've got a brilliant strategist, an economic theorist, a real-world entrepreneur. And among our senior staff, we have someone in whom we take great pride because she's overcoming such great adversity. And we look forward to her return. And then I think about our students, and we are motivated by them because they have such a broad-minded approach to leadership. So I have a sense that things are really coming together, and then I connect with our alumni and their leaders, sort of the way that the dean described. They're leaders, exemplary leaders across these sectors, and I think we're all ready to go. And then I could stop there. We do indeed, in some ways, have all the essentials in place. But I think we've also done some things in the last few years that have anticipated programmatically this design, the character and capabilities of Evans Hall. And I'd like to talk about those for a few moments. And President Salovey touched on these. We have really worked on two fronts. First, we've focused on yet greater involvement with Yale. You take our full-time MBA program, it's got the highest percentage of joint degree students by far of any peer MBA program. We have new initiatives on healthcare, on sustainability, and on asset management. Each of those initiatives is at the nexus of business and society and leads us to connect with our colleagues around Yale. We've got new foundational courses that we're offering to students outside of the school to bring them into Yale and have them access core knowledge offered by our distinguished faculty. These things are leading to yet greater involvement with Yale. Yale School of Management, before I came, might have already been the business school that was most involved in its campus, but it's clearly moving in that direction and deepening that involvement. So that's the first front. The second is the global front. And we've made really substantial and distinctive steps to make Yale School of Management the first global business school in the United States. I say in the United States because there are business schools outside the United States that I would describe as global, but I don't think there's one in the United States. And we've done that by developing a set of programs that is providing students and faculty with opportunities to connect with their peers around the world. We've developed the first network of business schools throughout the world. There are 24 other business schools in this network, not just the usual suspects that are chosen for partnerships for particular programs, but business schools, top business schools scattered throughout the world in this network for, global network for advanced management. I would say that if you believe in the concept of a flatter world, look at the Global Network for Advanced Management and you'll see, yes, this is really interesting. This is where the talent is. This network graduates a cohort of over 3,000 MBAs annually. How does it operate? It operates, in the words of my colleague, on diffuse reciprocity with a substantial infusion of leadership by our school. This semester, we're going to continue offering what I call small network online courses. Now, if you actually turn that into an acronym, I get chided for this. I call it a SNOC, as opposed to a MOOC. But these are courses are for select groups of MBAs. And this coming academic year, we're going to offer 10 of those throughout the network. Again, for small groups of pre-selected MBAs, not massive groups of people who are now trying out these MOOCs. 2 months from now, a different kind of program, 11 Global Network member schools will participate in the 3rd edition of what we call Global Network Weeks, providing opportunities for 460 MBAs throughout the network to study in global network learning environments. And throughout the semester, we'll recruit the best and brightest throughout the global network into our relatively new Master of Advanced Management program. This conference itself is a global network event. The purposes of these two fronts of activity, connecting across campus, connecting globally, is to meet the challenge of leadership development just the way the founding of the school was intended to meet the challenge of leadership development. We're now in a world that's characterized by great global connectivity, but a recognition that there are great differences in the societies with which we connect. There are differences in cultures. We've seen a systemic, not just a systemic, I think a global shift to market-oriented economies, but when you look inside those market-oriented economies, governments are different, they play a different role. We see complex and daunting problems facing every society. I think that's why we're so pleased to have government officials joining this conference. Do the solutions to these problems rely in any one sector? Probably not. They probably lie in the successful interaction across sectors. So when you look at this program, I think you're going to see an approach that reflects very much the founding of the school. This kind of programming, I think, extends our lines of sight. It increases our connectivity. It certainly increases our energy level, and it will expand the opportunities, the leadership opportunities for our students and our alumni. And they certainly reflect a commitment to the founding mission of Yale School of Management. Moreover, they reflect a belief that tomorrow's leaders will not come from schools that are standalone schools or that are de facto standalone schools, but rather that the leaders for tomorrow will come from schools that are connected to Yale and eminent and purposeful institutions like Yale, and that are connected globally, like this school is now becoming connected globally. This is what's so exciting about this period, where the programmatic efforts are matching the time and our new physical capabilities. Now, it's an interesting question for me. Could we succeed with our highest aspirations without Evans Hall? Could we do this without the design of Evans Hall, without these new capabilities? Could we become the first US school that's truly global without this facility? I'm not going to answer that question. I think it's sort of interesting, though. I will say, however, that we're absolutely committed to continuing our aspiration of developing a very high, disproportionately high share of leaders for business and society, and that we have a much better shot of doing that here rather than what Professor Oster described as our old facilities, even though we like them very much. It's with understatement that I just want to end with my own personal statement of gratitude that we find ourselves now in this unified space, this space with extended lines of sight, with energy, cohesion, and with the ability to connect across campus, with the ability to connect globally. Thank you very much.
Thank you all again for being here and for your great devotion, dedication, generosity to Yale School of Management. It's definitely a transformational moment for me to be, a transformational moment for the school, and an honor for me to be here. We're going to take about a 15-minute break before we begin the next panel. There are student and staff hosts in the hallways, which will help you find anything you need, and coffee and light snacks are in the dining commons, which will become known as Charlie's Place. and also on the second floor. Please be back in your seats at 4 when Rick Levin will introduce our first plenary session featuring Norman Foster, our Dean Stern from our architecture school here, Art and Architecture School here, and Professor Karen Van Langen. Thank you. Wait, excuse me, one moment. There was, before people leave, they'd like to show a video, a quick video, and then we'll take the break moments after that. But we'll still try to begin again at the latest at 5 after 4.
This is my mistake. We want to show you roughly 3,000 pictures. It won't take very long. These pictures start with March 3 years ago, so almost 3 years ago. So could we cue up this video?